Hello and welcome back. Let me introduce in this video the first advanced practical optimization case using Dakota-OpenFOAM. So this is a blonde body shape optimization, and this is kind of a textbook example because we manufacture this solution. Now we formulate our problem and we force this solution to get to a very specific shape. Okay, but let me explain a little bit what we're going to do. So basically we have this shape and we have four control points. And by modifying the four control points, we're using Bezier curve. We're going to change it, okay? And we want to reduce the drag, okay? So coming back now to that slide that I mentioned, never forget to formulate your problem. So if I formulate my problem as simple as that, basically the best shape to get the minimum drag will be this will disappear. All these points will be in the center, it will disappear. But we know that that is, or probably is a feasible solution, but in our case, we want to have kind of an airflow. So this is why we need to formulate the problem at constraints. So in this case, we add a few constraints to arrive to a very specific geometry. Okay, so basically what we have, geometry, the geometry is going to be generated using Salome. Okay, Salome is a, it used to be not so good. Now it's a little bit better, and honestly, it's getting better and better with time. And right now, I'm starting to consider Salome as a good tool to put it, in complex optimization loops. Can do the geometry meshing, so it's getting much better. And the most important, the most important was that it used to have some problems that very often it was crashing because it was using TCP ports and stuff like that, and sometimes those ports were busy and it was crashing. So you needed to restart. You know that you have that capability in Dakota, but it was a little bit annoying. But the latest test that I have been doing with a lot of simulations, function evaluation, it hasn't crashed yet, and I have done 10,000 function evaluations. So also it's up to you to test it, but I think it's getting better. So it is good content info to put in our optimization loop and substitute whatever end uses. So this is what we have. We're going to use this simple problem. It is to test many methods. So we're going to use gradient-based, design space exploration, SBO, and adjoint. Okay, so this is how the loop works. So Dakota is going to orchestrate everything. Then we connect to Salome, the geometry model. Then we pass to Salome again for the mesh model. We export the mesh. We go to OpenFOAM, and then a lot of post processing involves to convert everything. So as you see, it's quite simple, okay? And the stuff can get, by the way, very complex. You can connect just all these tools and you can put it in parallel and so on. So we're just adding a little bit now complexity level. So basically what we're going to have, the optimal solution as the problem is formulated, it is this one. So starting from this, remember 4 control points, we have a few nonlinear constraints. And so, well, the nonlinear constraint, we use it to force the shape to get this one. Now we are going to eliminate, but later I'm going to show you how to add nonlinear constraints and also to clarify what are those nonlinear constraints for those who doesn't know. Okay, so we have this one and we should get to this one. And the beauty of this one that also we can switch easily to a multi-objective optimization problem here because we can reduce the drag, but also we can increase the lift. And look at that. Optimization is very subjective. Problem formulation is important. Analyzing the data because yes, this one will be the one that is going to give you the minimum drag. But if I want to produce more lift, this one will be the optimal one. Okay, so look at how we push this problem to get to this one, and we can experiment with different designs. So we're going to change for minimum drag probably to maximizing LD and adding some constraint. Ideally, yeah, to add more LD will add more curvature, but we have it very well constrained. So remember, formulate the problem. So using, in this case, using a gradient-based method, in particular the method feasible directions, it's a classical method. We arrive to the optimal shape in 15 iterations, quite fast, okay? And instead, later I'm going to show you, we use an adjoint method that tends to be that state-of-the-art method. It will take much, much longer, very difficult to control. Okay, so here we're going to use the gradient method based in forward differences. Okay, and but it's quite fast. If 650, by the way, we're not putting turbulence model in anything. It's a quite coarse mesh, but just to get an idea how to do. But also we're going to use design space exploration. Remember, design space exploration is a kind of divergent method. You are not converging to the ideal. You are just exploring your design space to extract some knowledge that later you can use for something else, namely surrogate-based optimization or machine learning. So basically, we design experiments, so design variables, and see that we're sampling our design space. And look at it now, we have 4 design variables. We're not looking anymore at that 2D plot. Now we just do this plot now to look at all the combinations of the same variables and how we're sampled. So we can do many samples here. So in this case, we're going to use Latin hypercube sampling with 600 sampling, but you can put whatever you want there. The more the better usually, but then you have that constraint computational power and so on. So this problem up was this numbers variable converts relatively fast, okay? And using 10 concurrent simulations, you have more compute. If you have 600 cores, imagine that in one iteration you can have everything. So it will be much faster than this one, and you are going to get more information. Likely also you're going to get your ideal value. So look at that. Computational, knowing your hardware, formulating your problem, both are very important. So talking about the knowledge that you can extract. So look at that here, you have design variables, but here you have the response of each of the quantity of integers. So here we're measuring many things. So you can see that, for instance, some of these quantities have no correlation. So probably in your design process, you can eliminate it because it doesn't have any influence. But look at this one x4, it have a strong influence, okay, even a quadratic influence, so you cannot exclude that. And also, as I said, this is giving you a lot of information. You can see which one have a stronger impact. You can also identify outliers and so on. And here you have your responses. Also, you can get your combination responses with quantity of interest and so on, all your correlations. Here you have correlation matrix. Okay, so here in this correlation matrix, you can see, how well they correlate or uncorrelate, and so on. Okay, so this is part of this exploratory data analysis. Big data used to be called like that. Also, statistical learning. Right now is machine learning AI. Any case, they're all synonyms. Okay, then we can construct models. Models is just, in this case, we're using regression models to predict things, so we can build very good predictors. But this is just based on the quantity of interest, coming back to all this stuff that I use in image recognition, stable diffusion methods, large language models, and so on, because also you can reconstruct your solution. Okay, it is a meta model of the data. So now that you can imagine, these are singular points, but now you have a 3D case. You need to take like 1,000 cut planes, and then those cut planes you can reconstruct it from solution to solution, and that is super expensive, but it can be done. But I want to know if we can do, I trying to disrupt myself and trying to see if this stable diffusion can be used. So you need to train the model. So and training that model, I have the data. So far I'm getting something, but by the way, also basically I'm doing that to get initial conditions, not to get solutions, okay? That is really bad if you use all this stuff to get solutions. So there is a lot of people that criticize turbulence models, but they want to use machine learning, which is even worse than all the uncertainty that you can put in those turbulence models. Any case, sorry for that digression. So now we go here. Also, you can identify outliers. And this is very important because sometimes this is important information. You want to know what is that specific outlier that will deviate your solution, that it will give you problems. So using different techniques now, exploratory data analysis and so on. This is the box plot. I love it. You can easily identify outliers, get all the statistics and so on. And then construct your model, okay, using that data. So you can use polynomial regression, splines, neural networks, radial basis functions, and then Kriging interpolation, which is my favorite one. Then also my favorite one would be gradient boosting using XGBoost. And I would like to make a difference here later. Also, we're going to address that. Usually, I recall a while ago when machine learning wasn't that advanced, I was relying a lot in Kriging and Gaussian processes, and I was using that trying to reconstruct my field solution, which wasn't very efficient because this method, and you will see here that you have a big matrix inversion here. This is super slow. So imagine that you put there a mesh, and even a small mesh, something like 1,000 cells, which is small, this will take forever. So this method is not very efficient and usually works very well for a small data set. So stuff like less than 100 variables will work well. So this was where I was stuck with for a really long time. Okay, I recall even investing in a Tesla car, NVIDIA car, and today machine learning can do that, and this is where XGBoost is super efficient. Okay, I think it's unbeatable. You can do this, but XGBoost or those machine learning techniques, they work very well when you have a lot of data, but if you don't have enough data, they are really bad. So this is the trade-off. So if you have a small data sets, these techniques, all these techniques, they work very well. When you have large data sets, it's better to use machine learning. If that data set is expensive, well, you need to wait for a lot. Okay, any case, then we can do multi-objective optimization. We're going to change it to show you that. And remember, the goal in multi-objective optimization is to construct what we call a Pareto front. And this Pareto front will represent the set of best solutions. So here you don't have a single solution. You have a combination of many solutions. So for instance, you want to minimize drag and maximize lift. And it's clearly that is not a single solution. You have different combinations, and it will be up to you to pick up the best one, or probably you can cross-relate that one to another variable like volume or whatever you want. Okay, important concept also that this multi-objective also will generate a lot of data, but also you can use gradient-based method, whatever. Never use that data to construct model. Why? Because that data is biased data. It's biased towards whatever you are doing. And here you can clearly see that. So this is the data that I'm using now for a multi-objective case. I'm analyzing this data, and if I use this one to construct models, see that it will be a really bad model because you have biased data. So avoid biased data when you're constructing models. And now finally with adjoint optimization, and just want to go here that into our same case is very tricky, okay? And this is the last method that I want to show you because it requires user experience. So it's better to get familiar with the previous methods and then here. So one thing also, when you do optimization, it doesn't matter what type you use. It can be gradient, derivative free, or adjoint. Try to avoid to do optimization using unsteady solutions. Look at the steady field. Always compute your statistic. Why? Because if you have an unsteady solution, every single snapshot would have a different solution. So you don't have a single one. So that's why we look at that steady solution. And usually in engineering, when we're doing design, we look at steady solutions. Okay, we don't look at the whole unsteady stuff because otherwise you become crazy. In any case, when you do this, the adjoint, okay, you need to define many things. So in this case, we define a control box that is going to default the geometry, and then the output of this adjoint is going to give you kind of a vector field, the design velocity, which is going to tell you how you need to change your geometry. So this can be done manually by the user, or usually the solver will do that automatically. It's just to show you here how it's working in this case. And again, very bad you doing this stuff on a steady case, but it works. So look at that, it starts in 1 and then in 15 you get this one. And I put 15 because recall that the gradient method gets the solution in 15 iterations. This one, see that while you might read in literature that this is the best solution, the best method, look at that, in such a simple case is failing. And usually it's a method that you use, as I mentioned, to fine-tune your solution. You arrive to that optimal solution and then fine-tune that solution. It will find that small percentage that, let's say in aerospace, can make a big difference. 1% drag reduction, a big difference in fuel consumption. In any case, this is what you get after 15 iterations, and this is how it looks like. Look at also that this method will generate a strange shape. So here we're completely outside of the parametrization that we did in Salome. Instead, when we're using gradient, we still have those Bezier curve, everything. Here we're outside of that. So the method will start to create strange shapes. By the way, don't be afraid when the adjoint gives you a strange shape, because they are good shapes. They're a good solution, but usually from the practical point of view, they're not valid. So it's up to you to judge that, but it happens very often. And see here that you have some artifacts in this solution. See here that you have some noise there in the surface that better we see here. And this is due to the method, how the deformation is done. So here you will need to stop this mesh deformation and reduce scenes manually. Okay, so something that seems to be the best method, in reality for this simple case is not the best. There is a lot human intervention to avoid errors. And just here to summarize that in the gradient-based method, to get to these shapes takes 15 iterations. Here, look at that with the adjoint. In 15 iterations, we're really far. And to get to this solution, we need to do more than 60 iterations. And there is a lot user intervention. We need to stop it like at 10 iterations. You need to do reverse engineering to extract this shape, redo the mesh, smooth everything until you get to this perfect shape, which by the way, we don't get the perfect shape here. I'm just showing you the ideal one, but the one that we get after 60 is quite similar, but it's not the perfect. So be careful. Now think about the method that you need to use. Not always the adjoint is the best one. And how I proceed, always design a space exploration. Then we use gradient. And if there is room for improvement, use the adjoint. Okay, so that's all for this. And now we're going to get our hands dirty using this case. And I hope you enjoy the case and you start to play with more advanced concepts in the sense how to create that optimization loop and couple more tools. So see you next video. Bye.